for Buddies is a literacy program that we collect gently and new books to be able to donate to boys and girls. We try to focus on boys mainly because we want to inspire Christian all the time. In just over 1 year, more than 100,000 books have been donated to kids all over, including Jamaica and Belize.
My name is Keyshawn Gordon. I attend the Rural Patrick Academy. I'm in 8th grade. What we do here at Books for Buddies, we don't just give out books for no reason. Like, who gives out books for no reason? We give out books for kids who have a disadvantage, who can't afford books, who can't afford to the library, who don't go to the library. We give books to those kids. So what we're here doing today is showing you what great advantages are at in books. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is David Henninger. I'm a senior from Lake High School and ambassador for Books for Buddies. On behalf of the entire Books for Buddies faculty team and the advisors and ambassadors, I would like to thank the following people who made today possible for all of you. Toledo Lucas County Public Library, the Blade newspaper, Buckeye Cable System, the Andersons, Lucas County Metropolitan Housing Authority, Hart & Associates, the Lucas County Sheriff's Office, and last but not least, the Believe Center.
Good morning. I'm Jesus Dugo, Books for Buddies ambassador. This is my second year. I am a sophomore at Wimmer High School, and I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker in New Toledo Front. Jimmy Santiago Baca is ending a 2-day visit here in Toledo. He was so overwhelming to receive the last evening at Authors, sponsored by Toledo Lucas County Public Library and the Blade. Mr. Baca says, "There are a lot more kids who are like I was than people think there are. The beautiful thing is that somehow, someway, these kids are getting their hands on my books." Orphaned as a child, Baca drifted in and out of gang life and crime as a youth, until he found himself in prison in New Mexico on drug charges at age 21. In his book, Stories from the Edge, he described the crossroads that he reached while grasping for inner freedom behind bars. "I paced in myself, with the book in one hand and a knife under my mattress. I knew I could have a long, happy life with the book in my hand, or I could have a miserable, short life with the shame that was under my mattress. A place to stand." Jimmy Santiago Baca's message to you borrows its title from Baca's critically acclaimed 2001 autobiography, A Place to Stand, which is scheduled to be released as a film in 2014. A winner of the Pushcart Prize and the American Book Award, Baca facilitates writing workshops in schools and prisons. Today, students from several Toledo public schools are here for Mr. Baca's presentation, sponsored by Books for Buddies and presented by the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce Mr. Jimmy Santiago Baca. If you guys have any questions during Mr. Baca's presentation, feel free to raise your hand and ask any questions.
I have these for you to write the questions down. I have them as a Mr. Baca. So I'll be walking around. Just raise your hand up.
Thank you for inviting me. I don't know about this echo. Can you hear me better like this? Yes or no? Or better like this? Can you hear me better like this? Or can you hear me better like this? First or second? Wait a second, wait a second. Raise your hands if you hear me better if you can hear me better like this, raise your hands, or if you can, okay. All right, you can hear me better like that, all right. It just got a little echo in it. I want to thank Lenita Goins. She was really instrumental in getting me here at the last minute. Wherever you're at, there she is. Can you all give her a big, huge hand? Because I want to thank her. And I would like to thank Eddie Allen, a gentleman back there, who I've been friends with for a number of years. I know him as a writer, and I respect his work a lot. And I hope one day to be able to work with him, either on a movie, preferably a movie. It would be great to work with him and collaborate on something that he has. I read a book of his about a gentleman that he wrote about named Mr. Goins, who was a writer who had gone to prison and come out and had some real trouble with drugs, like almost everybody in my life has. And the way that Eddie wrote that book was just a page turner. I was on a plane and I was heading to another one of my engagements in the world, and I kept thinking to myself, what a beautiful writer this man is. So it's with a lot of happiness that I'm here again after being gone for a number of years. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm from Albuquerque. Generally, I'm from New Mexico. I just hate this technology world we live in, but anyway, I work in technology. I have a lot of things that I do that are transmitted worldwide to technology. I gave a speech recently that was heard by 11 million people on something they call an audio file. You know what an audio file is? That was pretty crazy. I gave a speech to Buddhists around the world. Isn't that wild? My kids got a kick out of that because they always see me talking to convicts in prison or to fraternal police orders or to universities or conferences on some theme. And for us to walk into this place that had all these Buddhists in it and all these candles was a really great honor for me to show my kids that these people were honoring me. Because the kind of life that I had growing up in the gang life with my parents, my brothers and sisters, and me doing almost 25 years in institutions. But I'll show you how contradictory life can be at times. It was no more than 2 or 3 years when I got out, after being institutionalized for 25 years, that I was offered a position at Yale University, the Wallace Stevens Chair. Very distinguished chair. And to show you how naive I was, I went to Yale, and it seemed kind of odd that these people were so wealthy. I'd never been around kids who could afford to buy a yacht every week. I was always around people who wondered when they were going to eat their next meal. But I was so naive that when they give you a chair at a university, when they tell you, Mr. Baca, we got the Wallace Stevens chair, I was telling my wife, I'll bring back a chair. There ain't no chair. They just call it a chair. And that was my first indication that the rich people were kind of nutty. If they're going to give you a chair, why don't they give you a real chair? Because poor people can use real chairs. But they just gave me a chair. They said, we're going to give you the Wallace Stevens chair. And I kept looking for the chair, wondering if this was the chair, wondering if that was the chair. Must be a pretty important chair since I haven't seen the chair yet, right? Well, I later found out that the chair gave away $150,000. This invisible chair was going to give me $150,000. I was okay. I said, I don't need to see no chair. just let me see the money. So they gave me $150,000. And then the New York Times and the Atlantic Monthly and every other magazine in the world wanted to interview me because I was this convict who had grown up in gladiator schools, who had grown up in all these institutions, who had somehow miraculously wrote a book that went on to win the National Book Award, the American Book Award, went on to win the greatest book affair award in Europe called the International Prize, and be published as a bestseller author out of nowhere. It was crazy. But I'll tell you what, the thing that I like about coming to this place, this is my last talk before I have to fly to Reed Army Hospital, and then I got to go to Italy. But the thing that I love the most about this last visit to you all is when I walked into that room back there. I can't tell you about all the movies that I wrote. I can't tell you about the 26 books in 30 languages that I wrote. I can't tell you about the screenplays. I can't tell you about the beautiful life. I can't tell you about my 5 kids, about my beautiful wife that I have. I can't tell you about the incredible, incredible life that I've had going through different prisons and reformatory schools and juvenile halls. I can't tell you how I dropped out in the 9th grade, how I could only speak Spanish. I can't tell you how all the times I almost died. I can tell you that the thing that mattered most to me in life was that word believe. Believe. I remember when my friends used to ask me, "You really believe that you're going to write a book?" You're talking about the projects that I grew up in. You're talking about the barrios that I grew up in. You're talking about people who were taught that they can never write a book in their life. I mean, to tell them that you're going to write a movie meant that you were doing way too much drugs. Dude, quit talking about making a movie and just lay off the drugs. People like us don't make movies. People like us don't write books. You know? So, oh, you see how hard it is for me to figure stuff out? This is a note. How's that? Better? Well, anyway, so when I believed, my belief went way back. My belief went back when my dad came in drunk and tried to kill my mother. My belief was, shouldn't be this way. My belief was when my dad picked me up when he was totally drunk and put me in a car and we went driving and he could have killed me. I kept thinking, shouldn't be this way. I had a belief in my body, in my mind, in my heart. I knew what was right and wrong. You didn't have to tell me. And I knew that drinking and doing drugs when I was a kid and watching my parents do it was wrong. I believed it was wrong. But the only difference between me and other people, when I went to gladiator school and everybody was prepping to go to San Quentin and go to Attica and go to other prisons, every single one of them believed that you had to join the gang. Every single one of them believed that you had to be really mean and tough and get out there. If they had a gun, you had to get a bigger one. If they did something to you, you had to do something twice as bad to them, right? And I got to tell you something. All by myself in my little tiny world growing up, you can't imagine how hurt I was that everybody was going one way and I was different. And I was alone. I felt bad. I felt alone. I felt like I was, man, what is wrong with me? I don't like what other people like. Girls didn't really like me. They weren't particularly fond of me because I wasn't like the guys. I wasn't like everybody else. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do sports. I liked playing ball. If you want to invite me, man, I'd go out and play ball with you any day. But I wasn't a hero. I wasn't a guy who could get girls at. I wasn't a guy who could deal drugs. I wasn't somebody who could be smart. I wasn't somebody who could push people around. I was just me. And it was hurting and it was hard and I suffered to be me. And then me with such low self-esteem, me with no purpose, me with no meaning, me running out of the classroom. I only got to the 9th grade and never even went to school. Why? Because teachers were telling me Mexicans ain't no good. And I'm like, dude, what do you mean it's no good? My grandma worked her life off in the fields trying to feed me. Don't tell you that my grandma's no good. The hell with this, I'm out of here. And I left school that day. I said, I'm not going to stay here and have you insult my grandparents. I'm gone, right? But I was still behind the store, lonelier than I've ever been. I didn't want to be part of the gang, but that seems to be the only place that I had. So I went, just because I was so lonely. And it hurt to be that lonely. Ended up in prison, and then the miracle happened. I still believed I don't belong here. I'm not that bad person. I'm just, ain't nobody ever, I mean, I don't. So I finally got a book. And guess what? The strangest thing in the world. I always believed that I was somebody. I always believed that I mattered. I always believed I had a purpose. And I always believed that other people were good. I never believed that they were bad. So it was hard for me to fight because I believed that you were good. And when you believe somebody's good, it's hard for you to hit them. They may have made some bad choices, but I don't want to hit you because I think in my heart you're good. And everybody I knew said, Jimmy, you're different, man. You're just different. You don't have to go do a robbery. You ain't got to go do this because you're just different. We don't want you around because you're going to screw things up. Well, I want to be around. I want to be part of you. Well, you can be part of us, but you can't do no robbery or anything because we don't want you to. So when I got to prison, I started reading books. And you would not believe it. Some of the greatest writers in the world. James Baldwin. You ever heard of James Baldwin, this amazing black writer? The guy was so incredible. I mean, I could go on for every country in the world. Turgenev from Russia, Madame Bovary from France, Hernandez from Spain, Octavio from Mexico, on and on and on. Every single one of them was writing about the same thing that I was feeling. They believed that I was a good person. I was reading, I couldn't believe that the paragraphs, they were like, yeah. They would write about a kid growing up. They would write about a kid, what he wanted to do. And I would say, that's me. This is the first time I've never heard it from a human being, but this is me. And all of a sudden in prison, I started, instead of going like that, I started standing up straighter and straighter. I started carrying books. And all of a sudden the gangbangers came and said, hey man, Jimmy, we want you to go with us to the field and do this. I'm like, nah, that's not me. What do you mean that's not me? That's not me, man. Why? Because I believe I'm going to be a poet one day, and I can't be messing up on the yard knifing some dude, because I believe. And they say, you know what, take your beliefs. You don't have any beliefs in here. You're a stupid convict. You got no future. You got no past. You're going to live and die here, so get with it. And I said, I don't believe that. I do not believe that. I said, I'm not going to let you write my story for me. You're not going to write my life story. Because my dad was a drunk and my mother was an addict and my brother got killed and my sister got killed and my other brother got killed doesn't mean that I have to write that story. That's not my story. I believe that my other story I can start to write. And guess what? I began to write and crazy, amazing things began to happen. The first thing I decided to do with my writing, I learned how to read and write when I was 21. That means all of you in this room are smarter than me. I started learning how to read and write. I wrote a letter to my grandmother to tell her I might die tomorrow because these gang guys want to kill me because I don't want to go along with the program. And I'm not going to go along with the program. I don't care if I have to fight all day. I just want you to know I love you. I never said that to anybody. I grew up with, I don't know. I don't know. Well, you want to go to the cemetery and be buried alive? No, I don't know. Well, do you love me? I don't know. My great cop-out was, I don't know. Because that way I didn't have to deal with my illiteracy. I didn't have to deal with the fact that I didn't have any self-esteem. I just said, I don't know. How'd school go today? I don't know. Did you do anything at school? I don't know. It was crazy. But when I began to have the power of words and I began to express myself, do you know that the baddest guys in prison stopped, turned around, looked at me and said, what? And I began to express myself. They were like, wow, that's a power that we can respect. They didn't respect my fists. They didn't respect me fighting. But when I began to tell them, look, I know that you were abused as a kid. I know that your mother left to go get heroin. I know that your dad wasn't there. He never talked to you. They were like, whoa, just stop, man. Stop, Santiago. It was a scary power that I had. This power to be able to express my feelings. And do you know that within a year or two, I became one of the most powerful men in American prisons? And then I wrote a book that won the Juniper Prize Award. And then I came out of prison and I won another award, and it was published all over the world, National Book Award, American Book Award. I then went on to make movies like Blood In, Blood Out, Lone Wolf, and a bunch of other movies. Do you know that it just went on and on and on and on and on? The more I believed about myself, the more it happened. And then I believed the ultimate. And no matter where I went in life, I had books. I carried books. It's no coincidence that I walked out here with a book. This is what I do. I give books away. I love books. I read books. I live by books. And I stole my first books. And I got 2 daughters. And I got 3 boys. And every single night of their life, when they were your age, I'm talking about your age, they got read to. Every single night we read stories. So if my little daughter Lucia came in, she's 6 years old, if she came over here right now and stood right here in front of you, she would know about you. She would know your culture. She would know about what you like, what you don't like. She wouldn't be like a scared, oh my God, I don't know. She'd be like, hi, how you doing? You want to see me dance? That's how much self-esteem she has. My other kid, Isai, I said after I wrote a book that had his photograph on it, he said, you know what, Dad? Because it had his photograph, but I wrote the book. But you know what he does? He says, you ain't signing my books no more. I said, that's not your book. That's my book. No, it's got my photograph on the cover. I'm giving the books away now, Daddy. So no matter where I go, if he's with me and we got his books on the table, I can't touch them. He gets to sign them and give them out. That's my kid. All 5 kids. And guess what? I dreamed. Believe is another way of saying dream. It's another way of dreaming. To believe is to dream. And when I was in prison, I dreamed of having a family. I dreamed of having a beautiful, beautiful wife. And do you know that I have the most amazing wife that ever walked the earth? Do you realize she was a model for Oprah Winfrey? Do you realize that she had number 2 in the United States for barrel racing on a horse? And do you realize that I was sent to Las Vegas to write an article for Esquire magazine, and I saw this woman come out of the chute on a horse, and I was like, good Lord, what a woman. My God, what a woman. Lord, let me be the horse. Let me be the horse, Lord. And guess what? I went back to the back of the arena and I said, can I interview you? And she told me no, she was crying. Because she lost by 0.02 of a second. The national finals, and I said, well, here's my phone number, if I can get an interview before tomorrow, before I have to fly back to Chicago. She called me up that night, and I said to her over dinner, why were you crying? And she's like this famous model, famous horseback. Guess what? I was crying because my dad was drunk in a motel, because my mother was drunk with him, and because they took my horse and they went and sold my horse so they could buy their damn drugs and their liquor. They were drinking in a motel room, and the horse that I was riding, I had to go rent it. I said, wow, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that your parents did that to you. I said, I thought you were rich. I thought, you know, I mean, you seem like you're so beautiful. You seem like you're rich. You got a model. You're over there working with Oprah. You're doing all these other things. She said, I don't care about the rich money. She said, all I care about is that my parents are drunks. And they've been drunk since the day I was born. And I was like, wow, I cannot believe how much we're all alike. I can't believe how me being in prison and her being in her own prison with a family who's drinking is the same thing. But you know what? I believed that I would have the most beautiful wife in the world. And 15 years later, she's my wife. And guess what she believed? She believed in her heart. That's okay, I want him to ask a question. She believed in her heart that one day she would marry a famous poet. And guess what? Our belief, the dream came true. And guess what? When dreams come true, they start out this big. Dreams start out that big. They start out as big as this little boy right here holding up his hand. That's a dream question. That dream question can grow and grow and grow to, do you know that I spoke with Bishop Tutu? I mean, I didn't speak to Bishop Tutu. This could be the second Bishop Tutu right here. But I didn't speak to him. I spoke with him at a university. We had us both together on there. And Bishop Tutu didn't call me an ex-convict. He said, my man, you are a great, great voice of the people. You are God's great worker. And I was like, wow, you're not going to call me an ex-convict? He said, oh, no, everybody in South Africa has been in prison. I was like, oh, Bishop Tutu, come here, homie. And I hugged him, right? And he was like, what's homie? So I had to explain to Bishop Tutu what a homeboy was. Okay, I got a question here. Hold on.
Are your parents still in prison?
No, my parents are dead. They died a long time ago. Yeah. Yeah. So listen, when I was sitting in a jail cell, I had a dream. Like I said, that I would have a beautiful family and a beautiful wife. And I have everything plus 1,000 times more. I never thought I was going to have a ranch. I never thought my kids were going to do great in school. I never thought that they were going to be filmmakers and businessmen. I never thought my daughters were going to be the most beautiful in the world. I never thought anything like that. It all came true, and it all started out with this. It started out with this. Now I could be with Hollywood stars this morning. I could be with really famous people in New York. But what a writer does and what I love is I'm in a room by myself with music playing, and I'm writing from my heart, doing the same thing I did 35 years ago when I was in a jail cell. But now I'm doing it from my own beautiful Arabian horse farm up in the mountains north of Santa Fe. I live a long way from here in Santa Fe, and I have a beautiful ranch, and I have guest houses on the ranch, and I invite writers from all over the world to come there and write their books. Like all of you, if you were to say to me, Mr. Baca, I want to write a book of poetry. Say you want to come out and learn you want to practice your dance moves, right? Say you want to be a dancer or something like that, right? And you wrote me an email, and I said, we have one house available, and you get to come out. We give you a vehicle like a Jeep or a truck or a car. We give you your own house along the creek. We give you money, and you get to stay there for 3 months, and you get to finish your work. And then you go to New York or LA and perform it. But I've given you a refuge to do it in. Why? Because I never had anything. I never had anything. You know? So, books have all taught me compassion. They taught me that people are not bad. They taught me that with reading and writing, I could do anything in the world, because reading and writing, I got to tell you something. Belief and dream is one thing. But the only thing that helps the dream move forward is the reading and writing. The more you read and write, the more power you have to feed the dream, to make it real. So guess what? And then you can ask me questions. Guess what? When somebody said to me, a lot of the guys that I grew up with said, there's no way you're going to make a movie. And there's no way they're going to give you $92 million? Do you know how many lowrider cars I could buy for $92 million? Do you realize how many drugs I could buy for $92 million? I could buy like 25 Boeing jets and bring all those drugs. For $92 million, I could become a cartel kingpin. But the only thing I wanted to do with the money was write a movie. I wanted to feed the dream. I didn't want to be like all those other people. When I started doing the movie called Blood In, Blood Out, Bound by Honor, which today is the number 3 DVD in the United States, after 12 years, the number 3 in the United States most owned and checked out. Can you believe that? Who thought it would become a cult film among kids your age and high school kids all over the world? Who thought? I mean, today we still have guys like Eminem quoting my lines in the movie. Who thought that Eminem would do it? Who thought that Madonna would email me and say, I want to go on a date with you? Because of that movie, right? Did she know I'm this old Chicano guy with no hair but got a big heart? She probably doesn't, right? But anyway, so when I go home, tell all these guys, I'm like, I'm going to write a movie. And they're like, yeah, right. You're going to write a movie. These are hardcore gangsters. Guns on the table, drugs on the table, 15, 20 of them. And you do not want to be with them when they decide to get crazy. You do not want to be there. But they're friends of mine that I grew up with. So I come by to say, hey, man, I'm back in town for a couple of days. Go see the movie. And the first thing they said to me was, it's a lie. You didn't do anything. And when they tell you it's a lie, they don't believe you, it's because they quit dreaming. And there's only one person who quits dreaming. And you can be walking, but there's only one kind of person that doesn't have dreams. And that's a dead person. You can be in prison, you can be in the hospital, you can be in a coma, you still dream. Dream is a way of saying you're alive. And there's a lot of people in America today that quit dreaming. Teachers who no longer believe in what they do. Gangsters who no longer respect life. Women who got married to a man who realized that he was just pretending to love her. They all quit dreaming. And what happens when people quit dreaming? They start taking drugs, they start drinking, they start being mean to each other, they start fighting. That's what happens to the dreamless ones, right? Well, my problem is that I started dreaming and I just couldn't stop dreaming. Books, every time I read a book, I thought, wow, that's cool. This guy went and did this. Wow, this girl went and did that. Wow, I would like to try that, you know? It was amazing. I wrote one poem, and guess what happened? I wrote one poem. What happened to that when I wrote that one poem? You think? Give me a guess. I wrote one poem when I was in a jail cell. What happened? You want to take a guess? No? Do you want to take a guess? Just take it one guess. They burned it, they chewed it, they ate it. What happened? Hold on. Tell me what happened. Do you think happened to that poem? Some guy stabbed me in the back with a knife because he didn't like my poem? Well, tell me what happened to that one poem. Hold on. What happened when I wrote that one poem? A long time ago to my grandmother that said, Grandma, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I love you for taking care of me.
She liked the poem.
He said she liked the poem. She never got to read the poem because she died, my grandmother. Hold on a second. You want to say something? Here, hold that. Hey, this guy nailed it. He said the poem became famous. Yes, guess what? That one little tiny poem to my grandmother that said, I just want to say to you. That's what the name of the poem is. I just want to say to you. It's been anthologized 20,000 times. That means that all over the world, people have taken the poem, they translated it into Ugandan, they translated it into Somalia, they translated it into all the African languages, all the English languages, all the Netherlands, all the Chinese, all the Asians, and they got to pay me for it. $500 to $1,000 every time they do it. That little poem to my grandma has made me over $150,000. I didn't write it for money. I wrote it because I said, Grandma, I love you. Just that. I didn't know the world was going to open its doors to me and become my community. But when I went into the room and told those guys, hey, have you seen the movie, or I'm going to write a movie? They said to me, you're lying. Because that's what they've been telling themselves all those years, every time they try to do something. Don't lie to yourself anymore. You can't do it. Don't even dream anymore. Don't try to go someplace, because you're just lying to yourself. Well, guess what? There was no way that I could lie to myself, because I believe, like that word back there, believe, it's such a big word in my life. I believed that I could write a movie, and I put my pencil and I got some words, and I wrote about what happened in my life, and I took it to Hollywood, and I got one of the biggest directors in the world, the guy who did Officer and the Gentleman and La Bamba and Devil's Advocate, Dolores Claiborne. I knocked on his door. I said, look what I got. You want to read it? Well, who the heck are you? Well, I'm just this homeboy from down in New Mexico in Santa Fe. Well, how'd you find out where I lived? I said, well, I did some research. Well, I normally don't do this stuff. Go see my agent. Well, I don't want to see our agent. I'd like you to read this. All right. 2 hours later, he calls me. This is a magnificent script. Thank you. Can we make a movie out of it? Absolutely. 2 weeks later, we're at Disney. They gave us a $92 million check. Yeah! Do you know how much love my mama gave me? When I went home and said, hey, honey, here's your part of it. You got $300,000 to go buy yourself a new house. She's like, honey. And you know what the magic was? Guess what the magic was? She believed in me. I believed in my work. And then guess what happens after that? Woo, my world changes. I go from a little tiny poet writing in rooms to Denzel Washington calling me. Hey man, I really like this thing you wrote, man. Is it possible for you to fly down here to Philadelphia? Can you talk to us? Boom. Sean Penn, hey, can you come to Los Angeles? We want you to write this new movie for us. Boom. I mean, it went on and on. Julia Roberts was gonna go out and date us with me. I was like reading a poem at a bookstore in Santa Monica. My poetry, I told you my poetry. And there's this woman in the back that I think is way too skinny and needs to eat some beans and rice. And she's got glasses on, and she got long hair. And I'm thinking, that girl's look way too skinny, man. I gotta talk to her, right? So I go back there after the poetry reading, I'm like, you look kind of sick, you know? You got that white skin, it looks kind of pale. You got your cheekbones sticking out. She took her glasses off. Whoa, it's Julia Roberts. And she wants to go on a date with me. I'm like, no, I can't. I don't dream about that. You know what I'm saying? I only do things that I dream about, right? Now let me tell you about dreams and let me tell you about life, and then that's it, I'm done, because my throat. I'll tell you about life. I'm going to tell you about a policeman. My second son, who's now a great filmmaker, I lost hope in. Because he was the laziest guy in the world. He had a nose plug, he had tattoos, he had red hair. He was just terrible. But I love him. Every day of my life, I got up, he got up, we kissed. I got the most beautiful life you ever saw in the world. Just amazing. Anyway, especially for a guy who's a convict, an ex-drunk, ex-addict, ex-everything, right? I got the most beautiful people that love me. I mean, I wake up and my daughter comes rushing, boom, knocks me down, you know? Well, I got to take my son to the baseball game. So I got my pajamas on, t-shirt, Saturday. I jump in my car, go to the baseball field, drop him off. A policeman pulls up behind me. And I just got out of bed, haven't had my coffee, nothing, right? So I'm like, he's talking to two girls. And I'm getting mad. I'm getting really mad. And I honk, and then finally I open my door and say, hey, why don't you do it on your own time? Why don't you go and do it on your own time? And he looks at me, and he's a Latino. He's well decorated, got a bunch of stuff on his lapels and stuff, badges, stars, gold stuff, bars. And he moves forward, and the two women move forward. And I think, you know what, if you want to date him, do it on your own time, not taxpayer time. And I back up and I take off. And sure enough, 2 seconds later, woo, 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 woo. I pull over. He comes up. I'm in my PJs. Means I got no license. 1 ticket. No seatbelt. 2 tickets. No good registration. 3 tickets. Not obeying the police officer. 4. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So he's at the table and he goes like this to me. He keeps on writing me and writing me. And I tell him, hey, you know what, dude, if you're going to go flirt, why don't you go flirt on your own time, man? I don't care about these tickets. That little defiance comes out, right? And he says, that was my wife and my daughter. Oh, wow, sorry. I respect families, man, I'm sorry. Oh, give me all the tickets you want. Give me them all, because I didn't mean that. And he kept looking at me and said, have I arrested you before? I said, no. Oh, dude, my daughter's got a poster of you in her bedroom. That's where I've seen you before. Are you that guy? I said, yeah, I'm that guy. Anything to get out of the tickets. I'll be any guy you want me to be. I'm the guy. Right? This is part of my dream too, getting out of trouble, right? And he says, you're that poet. But then he knew who I meant. He said, you're the poet. And I said, yeah. And he said, my daughter loves you. She loves your movies. Wow. And then he starts talking to me. He says, forget these tickets. And he starts to talk to me. And I'm sitting there talking to this guy, and he's telling me, this is what really, really got me. He says to me, it hurts me, man. I'm like, because I've only seen the badge and the gun. I never saw the human being. I never saw the man who was hurt, who was, you know. He says, it hurts me, man, that when I go home, my daughter asks me about books. My daughter tells me about dances. My daughter tells me about poetry and songs. I don't know anything. I just go to malls and I protect the people from these guys that pull out guns. I put my life on the line. But every time my daughter looks at me like, Dad, you don't know stuff. You're the guy that knows it. Wow. So I don't know what to do. So I tell the guy, well, listen, can you come to my house? And I'll give you some books for your daughter. And he's like, okay, I'd like to do that, man. Will you follow me? It's the first time in my life I got followed by a cop that I wasn't afraid. It was cool. He was following me to my house, right? But like I told you, my son, my second oldest son, he was still smoking pot. So I thought, dude, there's the bong on the table and there's some grass on the table. I got to get home. Or else I'm going to end up in jail again. So I'm like, how do I not lose him, but get home quick enough to get all the weed off the table, right? So I'm like, how do I do this, right? And I'm in my pajamas thinking, oh, God, I'm all panicky, right? So I got to get home, get my son's marijuana off the table, and let the policeman come in where it's all clean. So I had to like go fast, and he was trying to catch up to me, but I had to slow down to make him think that I wasn't trying to lose him, right? I was like, wow, what is going on? So I managed to run in. Like I had to use the bathroom or something. I remember him pulling up into the cul-de-sac, and I'm like, I gotta use the bathroom, bye. You know? And I just started throwing all this stuff that was on the table that my son had, right? Getting rid of this pipe where he smoked marijuana in. I was like, and then he's like, hey, come on in. Sure, everything's good. Come on, you know. And it's like, woo, right? So he comes in, sits at the kitchen table. I make some coffee and eggs, but the gun bothers me because I've been in gun battles and got shot a few times, went to prison for a shootout, that whole thing, right? So I told him, is there any way you could put your gun on the mantle? And he said, it's against police policy, but I'll do it. So he got up and he put the thing. So we sat there, believe this or not, we sat there for hours, him talking about him wanting to be a closer, better father to his daughter, and me talking about all my run-ins with police and how my life had been. It was the most amazing conversation I ever had, you know? Now, the only reason I say that is because you have to be careful when you say people are your enemies, because they're not. They're not your enemies. You just don't know them. Now, let me just end with this really quick. Another story really quick. They gave me all these kids that were the baddest kids in the baddest gangs in high school, right? They put them in a room and they said, this kid shot somebody, this kid shot somebody, that kid knifed his teacher, this kid burned the building, this kid over here had 200 pounds of methamphetamine or something. All these kids have done some really bad things, and we want you to work with them. And I have all my life. I've worked, for the last 40 years, I've worked with kids all over the world, right? Very successfully. Now, I had two people working with me. Both women, and both from the Buddhist Center in Santa Fe, where I sometimes teach, right? They came in. One of the women was an artist from Colorado, and she was teaching the homegirls, all the gang girls, how to do artwork for the book cover and stuff. And I had Snoop Dogg come from Los Angeles to Albuquerque to read poetry in the class. I'm talking about the real Snoop Dogg. He was doing it as a favor to me, right? And they were all like, wow, this is crazy, right? Now, Snoop Dogg left. The other woman, not the woman who was a drawer, but the other woman, she said, I want to read you a poem, class. And she started to read a poem called Forgive Me. And if you know gangbangers, if you know people who are gangs related, they will never, ever, ever accept forgive me. They'll do everything they can, but they will never say forgive me. Well, the woman that I brought in said, I want to read a poem called Forgive Me. And she began to read the poem, and it was the girls in the class that said, the heck with that. You ain't got to apologize to nobody. The heck with them. They're the ones that got to apologize. And the guys were like, you know what, she's right. You can tell those people, they the ones that got to apologize, not you. You didn't do nothing. So they were backing her up. They were saying, you're part of us now. You ain't got to apologize to nobody. I don't care what you did. And then she says, well, let me explain to you about the poem. I used to work as a policeman in San Diego for 15 years. And I used to enjoy going out and beating up black kids and Latino kids. And what I'm asking from you now is your forgiveness. Wow. You should have seen the class. They were like, what? You were a cop? She says, yeah, I was a cop. Wow. And you used to go up and beat us, people like us up? Yes. All of a sudden, 2 minutes ago, the woman that they were loving and respecting and saying, you ain't got to apologize to nobody, was now apologizing to them. And she was like, the girls and the guys were going like through, the girls were like, oh God, they were shaking their heads, they were shaking their hands, they were like, this is crazy, man, this is crazy. And the guys were like, man, what are you doing, man, what are you doing? They were all tripping out. And then it was a girl, God bless these girls. There was a girl that looked up at her and said, I accept your apology. And I want to cry right now because the girl looked up and she had tattoos all over her face. She goes, I accept your apology, man, thank you. Oh, man, then the woman started crying. She was like, thank you very much. Then one of the big old hardcore gangbangers from the Crips of the Blood stood up and said, I accept your apology too. You ain't doing it no more, right? She said, no. Wow, the whole class started like, wow. And before you knew it, everybody was like accepting her apology. They had never been apologized to, these kids. And there was a policewoman that was saying, I'm sorry for doing that to you. And the kids were like, wow, no policeman's ever apologized for anything to us. And right then and there, the teachers were in the classroom. They were like, we have never seen anything like this happen ever. Cool, huh? Very cool, right? But let me tell you what happened next. After we got together, it was one of the best classes ever. One of the girls was writing a poster for one of the book covers. And she took her book cover poster and she walked out of the school with it, and she was proud of it, and this other woman was helping her. And when I was leaving the school, the police were called. The police were called because she refused to give up her poster because the school authorities said it was inappropriate. And we had just come out of a class where we had had all that beautiful magic happen, and now she's walking out with the poster, and the principal, somebody stops her and says, give me that, that's gang-related crap. And she said, no, you're not taking this. And she started fighting them. The cops were called. I'm walking out into the parking lot, and the girl's yelling, Mr. Baca, don't let him take my painting. Wow. I didn't know what to do. She looked at me and she said, Mr. Baca, the police are going to take me. I was doing the painting for you. I was like, wow. I walked up, I said, can you just not do this to her? Can you just leave her alone? He said, you're a visitor here. This is school policy. We're not going to have this. And so when I walked to my car, I didn't think about anything except that word back there. She's either going to believe that the world is bad and become bad herself, or she's going to believe in that artwork and what I said and what that woman said, right? Well, thank God, when I was in San Francisco with a play I did at the Mission District, this woman came up to me in the audience when I walked outside. She came up and she followed me out of the theater, and she says to me, hey, Mr. Baca, remember me? And she looked at me like this and she showed me the tattoos. I said, no. She said, I'm the girl at that school that they arrested that day. I'm like, wow, what are you doing here? I was blown away, right? She said, I run an advertising agency now, and I still draw. And I said, how do you do? What do you mean you got an advertising agency? She says, I do, and I do two things, she said. The people that work for me, I send them to detention centers to help with the kids drawing, and I still believe in myself. And I was like, wow. I almost fell down in the street. I looked at her and I thought, you're an angel, right? You're an angel. You must be an angel from God. Because I remember that day. That day never left me. I remember that day. I thought you were destroyed for life. She said, no. She said, that police lady, when she apologized to me, made me believe I was worth something. I was like, good Lord. How incredible can life be sometimes, you know? Is that amazing? Is that amazing? So if you go to San Francisco and you work for MA Advertising, you tell her I said hi. If you are good artists and painters, okay? Because you got to be good to work for her. Okay, Eddie's going to throw some questions. Okay, I don't know where are my glasses. Yeah, let me see.
First question is, out of all the people you've met, who was the most interesting and who left the biggest impact on you and why?
Of all the people I met, who left the biggest impact on me and why? My kids and my wife. I can't tell you how big the importance was when I quit pretending to be a dad and became a dad. It was huge. It was a big deal. Okay? Oh, there's my glasses. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm tired.
What would you say to these students about not being afraid to stand on their own without a clique, gang, or poor association?
Standing on your own, look, I got to tell you something. There was nobody that was lonely or more alone than me. But the only way that I got to believe in myself was reading books that reaffirmed my belief. Books told me that I could be somebody. Books taught me that I was important. Books conveyed to me that I was worth something. And when I was feeling all of that, man, I didn't want to be part of anybody that was going to do negative stuff. All I wanted to do was make movies and write books, because you know what? At that age, when I was 19, 20, I knew that if I wrote enough beautiful poems, I was going to have all kind of girls dating me. It's okay to laugh. Really, the first time I wrote poems was because I wanted to get some girl to love me, man. You know, love poems. How many of you have written love poems? Raise your hand. Come on, how many? God, everybody acts like, no, I don't breathe, I don't have no eyes, and I don't walk. How many of you have written one love poem to somebody you love? Okay, that's not enough. All right, here's what you got to do. If I'm your teacher, which I will be starting tomorrow, I don't know if they told you or not, but starting tomorrow, I'm going to put you through a serious, rigorous discipline. You all are going to go to Stanford and Yale, but I'm going to be your teacher starting tomorrow. And the thing that you're going to have to do tomorrow is bring a notebook and start writing your love poems tomorrow. If you don't, you fail. You all want to go home with a failing note? Don't show up with your notebook or your poem. You think I'm kidding you? Have you talked to your teachers? Talk to them. I'm going to be your new instructor, and I ain't easy. If you want to get to Stanford or Yale, you're going to go with me, so we're going to do it, all right? You believe me? Thank you. Next question. So bring your love poem tomorrow, else you ain't coming back. Ask Miss Goins. I'm just kidding you. Yeah. That's it.